Today, we step into one of the most haunting, politically charged moments in all of ancient Chinese history. A single failed mission on the banks of a muddy river that would foretell the fall of China's first imperial dynasty. This is not a story of gold or glory. It is a story of legitimacy, of divine approval, and of a ruler so desperate to prove his power that he chased a 1,600-year-old relic to the bottom of a river, only to be rejected by the very heavens he claimed to serve. We are diving into the Qin dynasty's doomed attempt to salvage the sacred cauldrons from the Sishui River, a mission that would become the ultimate symbol of the mandate of heaven, slipping away forever. Let us begin at the very foundation of what these cauldrons meant, because, to understand the hunt, you must first understand why they were worth risking an emperor's reputation for. Long before the Qin, long before emperors even existed, the 9 cauldrons were forged. According to the Cauldron and Sima Qian, records of the grand historian Yu, the great founder of the Xia dynasty, united the flood-ravaged lands of ancient China and divided the realm into 9 provinces. He collected bronze tribute from each region, melted it down, and cast 9 massive cauldrons, one for each province. These were not mere cooking vessels or decorative bronze. They were the physical embodiment of unity, sovereignty, and the mandate of heaven itself. Carved with images of mountains, rivers, and mythical creatures, the cauldrons warned of evil spirits and signaled that the ruler held divine protection. For over a millennium, the rule was unbreakable. When a dynasty lost the mandate of heaven, the cauldrons moved to the next righteous ruler. Shang overthrew Xia, the cauldrons went to Shang. Zhou conquered Shang, the cauldrons moved to the Zhou capital at Luoyang. To ask about the cauldron's size or weight, as King Huang of Chu once dared, was to openly challenge the ruling dynasty's right to rule a crime so grave. It became the idiom, asking for the cauldron's meaning, plotting to seize the throne. These were not artifacts. They were the license to rule. By the time the Qin rose to power, the Zhou dynasty had crumbled. For decades, warring states had torn China apart, and the Zhou kings, once masters of the cauldrons, were powerless figureheads. Then came Huang. In 221 BCE, he defeated the last of the 6 rival states, abolished feudalism, standardized writing, currency weights measures, and built the Great Wall. He declared himself the first emperor, the first man to rule a unified China. But there was a gaping hole in his legitimacy, the 9 cauldrons. Historical records conflict, but the records of the grand historian states that when Qin conquered Zhou, the cauldrons were taken to Qin. Yet one cauldron vanished. Later accounts, including the Shui Jingju by Li Daoyuan, clarify that during the reign of King Xian of Zhou, one sacred cauldron sank into the depths of the Sishui River near modern-day Shuzhou. For Qin Shi Huang, this missing cauldron was not just a lost relic. It was a flaw in his divine claim. He ruled by the philosophy of the 5 elements. Zhou was fire, Qin was water, destined to replace it. But without all 9 cauldrons, his victory felt incomplete. The people might see him as a conqueror, but not as the heaven-sent ruler China had known for 1,600 years. In 219 BCE, 3 years after unifying China, Qin Shi Huang embarked on a grand eastern inspection tour. He climbed Mount Tai to perform the Fengshan sacrifices, declaring his dynasty's glory to heaven and earth. He built terraces at Langya and sent Xufu to sea in search of immortality. Every step was designed to broadcast his absolute power. Then he reached Pengcheng on the banks of the Sishui River. Here, he received word that the lost Zhou cauldron had been spotted beneath the waves. This was his moment. Qin Shi Huang did not act lightly. He ordered a full royal fast purification rituals and public prayers to the river gods. This was not a casual treasure hunt. It was a state ceremony, a direct appeal to heaven to confirm his mandate. He then assembled thousands of laborers, soldiers, and divers, lining the riverbanks with ropes, pulleys, and wooden scaffolding. Imagine the scene, the mighty first emperor, standing on a raised platform, staring at the dark churning water, surrounded by his court, as thousands of men prepared to pull heaven's own symbol from the mud. The tension was suffocating. Success meant eternal legitimacy. Failure meant heaven had rejected him. What happened next is etched into history. Sima Qian's account is blunt and chilling. The emperor fasted and prayed, wishing to retrieve the Zhou cauldron from the Sishui. He sent 1,000 men to dive into the river, but they could not find it. That is the historical fact. No exaggeration, no myth. But later, Han Dynasty records and folk traditions added a layer of terrifying drama that perfectly captured the political meaning. Li Daoyuan's Shui Jingju tells that the divers actually found the cauldron, secured heavy ropes around it, and began hauling it toward the surface. The crowd cheered. Huang must have felt his destiny fulfilled. Then, without warning, a massive dragon burst from the water, its jaws clamping down on the ropes. The ropes snapped. The cauldron crashed back into the river, sinking into the darkness, never to be seen again. The dragon, a symbol of divine authority, had rejected the Qin. This was not bad luck, it was a verdict. We must understand why this failure was catastrophic. In ancient China, the mandate of heaven was not just a belief, it was the social glue that held empires together. Rulers, governed with heaven's permission, and rebellion was justified if a dynasty became cruel, corrupt, or lost divine favor. Qin Shi Huang's entire regime rested on the idea that he was the rightful heaven-appointed ruler. The failed cauldron salvage sent a silent, terrifying message. Heaven did not recognize Qin's rule. The people saw it, the nobles saw it. Even Qin's own officials could not ignore the omen. The Qin dynasty was already built on fear, harsh legalist laws, mass conscription book burnings, and brutal punishments. The Laoding failure turned fear into doubt. If heaven had rejected the emperor, why should anyone obey him? This moment was a ticking time bomb. Just a few years later, Qin Shi Huang died suddenly during another tour. His eunuch, Zhao Gao, and Prime Minister Li Si falsified the edict, killed the rightful heir Fusu, and placed the weak Hu Hai on the throne. Chaos erupted. Peasant uprisings, led by Chen Sheng Wu Guang, Xiang Yu, and Liu Bang, swept across China. The Qin army, once invincible, collapsed. The dynasty that had unified China in 221 BCE was gone by 207 BCE, lasting only 15 years. The Sishui River cauldron failure was not the direct cause, but it was the first crack in the dam. It revealed that for all his armies, walls, and laws, Qin Shi Huang could not command the heavens. The missing cauldron was a metaphor for the missing mandate. Let us connect this to broader history. The 9 cauldrons never resurfaced. Later, dynasties, including the Han Tang and Song, tried to recast them, but none could replicate the sacred original. The Han dynasty, which replaced the Qin, used the failed salvage as propaganda. Han artists carved scenes of the Laoding on tombstones, showing the dragon biting the ropes, emphasizing that heaven had cast out the Qin and chosen the Han. This story became a warning to every future emperor. Power comes not from conquest alone, but from righteous rule and divine approval. You can conquer armies, you can build walls. You can force obedience, but you cannot buy or force the mandate of heaven. Qin Shi Huang's mistake was believing that power was about control, not legitimacy. He thought that by forcing the cauldron from the river, he could force heaven to accept him. But the river kept the cauldron. The dragon kept the mandate. And the Qin dynasty fell because it ruled with fear instead of virtue. Today, the Sishui River flows quietly, its depths still holding the legend of that lost cauldron. It is a reminder that in history, as in life, the most powerful symbols are not made of bronze or gold. They are made of trust, legitimacy, and the unspoken approval of the people and the heavens. The Qin hunted for a cauldron to prove their power. Instead, they lost something far greater: the right to rule. If you enjoyed this journey into ancient China, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic history. See you next time.